Got our meats nice and cooked, steaming. Got our bone. I just want to show you how we do some of our weekly meat meal prep. We hunt a lot, so our freezers are stocked with wild game, elk, antelope, mule deer, whitetail deer, you name it, we got it. It's one of our favorite things in the world is to have all that wild game out there in the freezer, ready to grab. And we do a lot of grind, but often, you know, grinding is a whole process, making your own grind. And often we just like to take roast pieces or even designated grind pieces that we have out in the freezer and cook them in a crock pot like this. The crock pot is such a handy tool, honestly, for this because it's super low budget, you know, and super low energy. What I mean by that is that you literally just put the meat in, add your seasonings, some water or broth, let it sit overnight, and the next day you got tender meat that you can pull apart, like pulled pork or pulled venison and elk in this case. Now, what we do is that we really don't add any seasonings to this beyond some apple cider vinegar, salt, and a bay leaf or two. I want it to be pretty neutral. I just want it to be cooked. And then we have a whole pot of it to use all week to reheat and, you know, add our spices and flavor however we want. Like if we want to make some eggs in elk, pulled elk, that's what we do. If we want to season it a bit spicier with some spicy seasoning, that's what we do. All right, so what do we got here? We got an antelope shank. That's basically the calf, like the bottom part of the leg. Nice piece of meat here and a bone that runs through the whole bottom. Lots of good bone marrow. I always like to have a bone in my crock pot. And then we just have a bunch of roast/grind pieces. Antelope shoulder, some whitetail hindquarter, and some elk even. So all I'm gonna do now is add water in here, cover it with water, add a bay leaf, salt, and vinegar, like I said. So let's do that next. Next up, I'm just gonna fill this with water and cover it with water actually. I've just found that if I cover it with water, it doesn't get dry like any of the pieces. And they stay nice and moist and get really tender after the crock pot is done. And you will see none of this is rocket science, you know. It's super easy and simple, which is why I like to do it. And you can literally make meat meal prep for a week. We're real simple with our food. We care about nutritious food. You know, it needs to be nutrient dense, but simple is the way to go. We do like to cook fancy sometimes, but why? You know, during the week when simple food can be just as delicious. There's no need, in my opinion, to like cook a 5-star meal every time. I'm making a mess. Gotta work quick here. But yeah, it's not, you know, it's not needed to make a 5-star meal. I think that just often like keeps people from cooking at home, which is, in my opinion, cheaper, like more budget friendly and healthier when you cook yourself. So we're just gonna place it in the crock pot. All I'm gonna do now is add a few things like the bay leaf, like I was mentioning earlier, or, you know, 2 of them. Doesn't really matter. Then several heaps of Redmond real salt, my favorite. Not a sponsor, but Redmond, if you're watching, sponsor our channel. Come on. Then I'm just getting some apple cider vinegar, like this here. Ta-da! Just however much you want. You know, you can take one of your wooden spoons here. You don't want to use metal in here because the coatings here on this crock pot, you know, you don't want to scratch it up. There's all these like weird chemicals that can get into your food and then into your body. We try to avoid that. So just wood, it's the best anyway. Isn't that beautiful? Check it out. Let me zoom in a bit. Look at that. I think that looks pretty good. put the lid on. Real simple. Click it in. Oh, not so simple, I guess. And, you know, I like to... Jeez, this is giving me a hard time today. Have it plugged in, right? Yep. I like to keep it on usually 8 hours, 7 to 8 hours. You can just kind of play around with that because depending on what you do, you know, the meat might get a bit mushier. I found 7 to 8 hours to give me like the good consistency that I need to make like a pulled meat, like a pulled pork kind of thing. And I forgot to mention earlier, the meat, if you saw it, it had all the skin still on there and whatnot. You don't really get that from meat you get from the butcher because they remove it for you. It's called silver skin. It's got a lot of collagen and other nutrients in it. I like to keep it in if I'm grinding the meat or if I'm doing something like this where it's braised and just slowly cooking over time, and all that collagen and connective tissue can break down and go, you know, into your broth here. And then you also have a broth to drink afterwards, or just, you know, keep it in your grind because that stuff is healthy. Like, humans have eaten the connective tissues forever. You know, it's kind of a new phenomenon that we get this perfectly trimmed steak or burger meat, you know, that doesn't have any skins in it at all, any connective tissue. So the connective tissue is good for you. And I have a few podcast episodes in the Year of Plenty podcasts about that, where you can learn more about it. But yeah, from here on, like I said, this is just going to sit overnight, and we'll be back in the morning so you can see what it looks like then. And then I'll show you how I pull it apart and explain a little bit more from there, I guess. That morning mocha though, my God. Not like the American mocha, I'm talking Italian mocha made just like my nonna does back in Italy. The best. Good morning. We are back in the kitchen and our meat has cooked for 8 hours and it's probably been sitting here for another hour or so on warm. So let's check it out. Looks really good to me. Next up, I'm just going to put it into a bowl. So we got one chunk of meat, looking good. We got the chunk with the bone. Let's see if I can, oh, it's falling straight off the bone. Look at that. Nice. That was the antelope leg, or the calf. What is it called? I'm blanking on it right now. Shank. The shank. Here's another part of the shank. The shank's a pretty dense meat. It's really only good for this kind of stuff. Or making ossobuco. That's actually what you make ossobuco out of. When you cut it cross section wise, like, yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. Another nice chunk of meat here. Look at that. All that broth running off of it. Yum. This one looks like it must be the elk. Don't ask me why. It just looks a little darker. Ooh. And another one. Let's go fishing in here for some more. And I did earlier, you know, the day before, say don't use forks in here and stuff. Just be really careful, I guess, that you don't scratch stuff up. I should have used my wooden utensil here, and I usually do. It's just really early in the morning, and I'm gonna need these for the rip apart, the pull apart, you know, making that pull, the venison and antelope and elk. Okay, here we go. Got our meats nice and cooked, steaming. Got our bone. There's just something special about a bone, right? And actually, If you've ever listened to my podcast episode with Dr. Mary Ruddick on traditional diets, she studies traditional diets, and a pattern she sees in all these cultures around the world is meat on the bone. Like, meat on the bone is one of the 4 pillars of traditional diets around the world. So another reason why I like to keep it in there. Okay, let's bring the camera over here so you can see what I'm doing. First, I'm going to take that bone out, and you can tell here's some of that collagenous connective tissue I was talking about, and all that marrow is out of there. No more marrow in the bone. This will be great for our doggy if he wants it, which he usually does. I'm just going to put that over here, and now I'm just going to start pulling this apart. And you can tell it's really moist, and that's why I like to cover it all the way with water when I do it in a crock pot. And you don't have to do this. You can also cut it into like slices, the different roast pieces. But we love this pulled consistency. This was probably the easiest meal prep ever, and we're left with, I don't know, several pounds of meat here. Lindy and I eat a lot of meat. We probably eat 1 pound to 2 pounds each a day. So this won't last forever, which is why we won't freeze it either. We just keep it in the fridge. Super simple meat meal prep. And the best part when you do this is that you also get a really nice broth, which you can drink. I could use this broth right now, throw some of that meat in there, got a soup. I can, could even freeze it, could can it. All sorts of things to do with this meat stock, which it is now, our broth, meat broth. And really good for you because of all that connective tissue that's in there now, and some of the other nutrients that have been pulled out from the meat. Actually, that vinegar, people say to put that when you're making bone broth into the mix because it draws more minerals and vitamins and stuff out of the ingredients. Cool. So we got a bone here. I'm going to feed that to our doggy. Is he allowed, Lindy?
Okay.
He's allowed. Come with me. Pretty good. Waffles. Oh, what is that? What are you looking down there for? Look what I got in my hand, buddy. Is this the smartest dog in the world? Up here. Oh. Come over here. Sit. Oh, you're hungry. Hold. Okay. Oh. What you get? Oh, what you got? Yo. Oh. He's happy. Goodbye. Thanks for watching.